Welcome to Anews. I'm Umar Taslim, and you're watching Turkey's Diplomacy. Turkish President Erdoğan has reaffirmed Turkey's commitment to justice, peace, and regional stability following the historic Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt, condemning years of Israeli aggression and occupation. Erdoğan says the ceasefire must be permanent and violations will carry heavy consequences, warning that the world can no longer tolerate further bloodshed after more than 67,000 Palestinian deaths. Joining me to discuss the latest from Gaza, Turkey, and Syria are Anews editor Mustafa Kocakenar and Dr. Nurhan Elbeya, professor of strategic studies at the Istanbul Aydın University and a consultant for the United Nations Development Program.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan spoke to journalists on his return flight from Egypt to Turkey on Monday. President Erdoğan evaluated Turkey's foreign policy engagements and recent regional and global geopolitical developments.
We were at this summit to say stop to years of Israeli aggression, occupation policies, and their ambitions that have plunged the region into instability. Against Israeli terrorism and its show of force, we took a stance defending not only our country's conscience but the conscience of all humanity. The Gaza experience clearly demonstrated to Israel that aggression will get them nowhere. Similarly, they saw that Hamas's will to resist has not been broken. We must continue to stand even stronger with Gaza. We must continue our struggle to ensure that the genocide is not forgotten. We must intensify our efforts to hold those responsible accountable.
The Turkish leader underscored the need for vigilance against potential violations, warning that Israel would face heavy consequences if it resumed aggressive actions.
Above all, it is crucial that this ceasefire be permanent and that no violations occur. Israel has a poor record of ceasefire violations. This situation forces us to be more vigilant and meticulous. We are determined to maintain this ceasefire. Israel, in fact, knows that if it reverts to genocide, the price will be heavy. I believe that Trump will continue to champion this process, which he has spearheaded. These developments have become the hope and aspiration not only of us but of the countries and peoples with whom we share this path. No one can consent to a return to the past, because the conscience and common sense of our societies have ensured this ceasefire.
He stressed the importance of reconstruction and revitalization in Gaza, calling on the international community to support these efforts.
There is critical work to be done in Gaza. Both construction and revitalization are important. We discussed the question of who can play a role with us. Regarding the construction work, we seek the support of all, from the Gulf countries to the United States and especially European countries. We support peace and will continue to manage this process accordingly. We are extremely excited about the establishment of a peaceful order in Gaza.
Turning to broader regional issues, the Turkish president reaffirmed Turkey's ongoing cooperation with Syria.
Our extensive contacts with Syria continue in every field and at every level. We are determined to strengthen close coordination and cooperation to protect the gains of Syria and the region. We also frequently urge the SDF not to resort to false paths and to support Syria's unity and integrity. Those who seek to drag Syria back into conflict wish neither the Kurds, the Druze, nor the Alawites well. Those who turn to Ankara and Damascus will win, while those who seek other protectors will lose.
Welcome back to the program. Anews editor Mustafa Kocakenar and Dr. Nurhan, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Omar.
Mustafa, I'll start with you. We were just watching this report on President Erdoğan and his statements. There were multiple statements on the Gaza Peace Summit, on world leaders, on Syria, on the future of Gaza's reconstruction. So many things to talk about, Mustafa. But first, let's discuss the statements made after the Gaza Peace Summit. Mustafa, how is the Turkish government looking at this peace summit? What are the main takeaways?
Omar, on Monday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan went to Egypt to participate in the Gaza Peace Summit, and on the sidelines of the historic summit in Egypt's touristic hub, Sharm el-Sheikh, he met with world leaders, including US President Donald Trump, French leader Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to discuss the possible steps to bring long-standing peace and stability to the Middle East. As you know, Erdoğan hailed Trump-sponsored peace plan to ensure peace and tranquility in the occupied Palestinian territory, Gaza Strip, and everyone was watching the historic summit to celebrate peace in the region. And he also spoke to journalists and he evaluated Turkey's recent foreign policy engagements in the Middle East, and he reiterated Turkey's strong support for US-sponsored Gaza peace plan. He reiterated that Turkey will take some responsibility to smoothly implement the ceasefire plan, but he also warned against ceasefire violations by Israel. He called to international community to be vigilant against Israeli provocations, because on the ground we know that Israel is struggling to keep its promises in the historical process. That is the reason why President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan is always warning against Israeli violations. On the other hand, US President Donald Trump also praised Turkey's and President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's role in advancing Gaza ceasefire deal. He praised his bilateral relationships with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. He also hailed Turkey's military power, and he called Erdoğan as a tough leader and a strong negotiator. We can understand from this situation that Erdoğan and Trump right now have been enjoying close relationships in all fields. Yes, there are some still uncertainties about Gaza's political future. There are still discussions about disarmament process for Palestinian resistance group Hamas, but at least the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is still holding in the occupied Palestinian territory, Gaza Strip, and I think that it will pave the way for the long-standing peace and stability in the Middle East.
Nurhan, what does this deal bring for the Palestinians? Because we know how, the text, I've been reading the text for a very long time now, and I've been trying to understand what this text means, what this declaration means. Obviously, they're saying we recognize the deep historical and spiritual significance of this region. We are united in our determination to dismantle extremism and radicalization. At the end of the day, the blame is falling on the Palestinians, right?
True, because this agreement consists of 20 terms or 20 points. They are so gray. This agreement consists of fragile terms, because where are the guarantees they are giving to Palestinians? Verbal guarantees, as President Trump mentioned a couple of days ago, but I think verbal guarantees are not strong. We all know the actions of and the behaviors of Israeli government. They never stick to any ceasefire agreement. Yesterday they killed 7 Palestinians. So where is this ceasefire? Since the beginning of executing or implementing this agreement till now, only 200 trucks entered Gaza, humanitarian aid, only 200. Despite the fact of in this ceasefire agreement, they mentioned that daily 400 trucks should enter Gaza. So till now, I didn't see full implementation of this ceasefire agreement. On the other hand, when we talk about peace agreement, where is the peace in this agreement? Who will govern Gaza? This is a big question mark. Foreigners, people from or ex-senior officials from all around the world except Palestine. This is so colonial way. This is so colonial language. Where is the Palestinian leaders from?
There's no representation.
No, at all. So another thing, they started in the beginning. They confirmed that, sir, Tony Blair will be the chairman of Peace Board, as they are calling it. 2 days ago, President Trump said that, yes, Sir Tony Blair, but it's not confirmed. I need to make sure that he will be accepted by everyone. So still even this part is not confirmed yet, because we all know that the board of peace will be consists of Sir Tony Blair as chairman and another billionaires from all around the world.
Yeah, Trump said that there are many leaders, there are many world leaders as well who want to be a part of this
and everyone
board
wants
of
to
peace.
be involved. Exactly. Everyone, he said, everyone wants to be involved. But this Gaza is part of Palestine. And already in the last United Nations General Assembly, lots of countries already recognize the statehood or the state of Palestine. So now we are talking about independent country. We should work towards independency for Palestine. So instead of this, we are talking about a very colonial way to govern Gaza. This is something so weird in 2025 especially. We are not in 1930. We are not, now we are in the modern in the modern history. We are not in old history. This is something I think unacceptable. Even Palestinian people will not accept it. And still we are waiting for Palestinian Authority to react towards this. We still didn't see any reaction, any significant reaction from them. Another point, now Israel is invaded or invading Gaza. They are now 58% of Gaza's territories under Israeli forces. As per the ceasefire agreement or peace agreement, they are saying now 58, in the other phase, in the next phase, it will be 37. The last phase will be 18%. 18%. But still, we can only see that, like clearly, that still the Israeli forces, same on their same spots, locations, they are still killing people. Yesterday, as we all saw, 7 Palestinian people have been killed. So till now, we cannot judge, we cannot say that there is complete implementation for this peace or ceasefire agreement.
Mustafa, coming back to Turkey's role, yesterday we saw Qatar has started sending equipment to Gaza, and everyone's involved. People are going back to their homes or whatever is left of their homes. They're trying to clear the rubble. They're trying to pave new roads. Obviously, that is going to take a lot of time. But Mustafa, I want to return back to Erdogan's statements. He said that Turkey will ensure that this ceasefire holds. And also, Turkey has sent over 10,000 tents now to the occupied Gaza Strip. How important, Mustafa, is Turkey's role going to be in a post-war Gaza?
Omar, as you know, there will be a task force to follow the implementation of the ceasefire deal, and absolutely Turkey will be a part of that task force, and President Erdogan said that Turkey will do whatever is necessary to bring peace and stability to the occupied Palestinian territories. Yesterday he also mentioned about a reconstruction process for Gaza, and right now Turkish Red Crescent and Turkish Disasters Management Authority are discussing what can be done to rebuild and reconstruct the war-torn Gaza Strip. I think that Turkey will meticulously and closely follow the latest implementation of a ceasefire deal. As far as I know, there are 4 stages for a ceasefire plan. These stages are the immediate establishment of ceasefire, the return of hostages and Palestinian detainees, uninterrupted resumption of humanitarian aid packages, and the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. And on Monday, both Hamas and Israel exchanged hostages and prisoners prisoner, and right now we can clearly talk about ceasefire between Israeli military forces and Hamas members. And right now I think we are at the third stage, and yesterday Turkey sent another humanitarian aid ship for war-weary Palestinian people living in the war-torn Gaza Strip, and there will be some discussions about Israeli withdrawal from the occupied territories. Right now Israeli security forces are occupying 80% of the Gaza Strip, but at the end of this stage there will be some Israeli occupation in the Gaza Strip. I think that Israeli military forces will stay in the 18% of the Gaza Strip, and it is clearly showing that we cannot talk about absolute peace and absolute sovereignty, Palestinian sovereignty over the Gaza Strip. And right now there are some discussions about transitional government and technocratic government for Gaza. I think that both Palestinian and international figures will be in this transitional government. Trump claimed that he and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair are set to lead this technocratic government to smoothly operate a ceasefire plan. But on the ground, we know that Tony Blair has a very bad reputation in the Middle East, because as the Prime Minister of Britain, he gave United Kingdom's strong support for American military operations against Iraq in 2003, and that is the reason why no one is hailing Tony Blair's upcoming role for Gaza's political future. And in this process, I think it is up to Turkey to mediate or facilitate diplomatic talks to smoothly operate the Gaza ceasefire or peace deal plan. I think that all regional and international stakeholders will take Turkey's security demands into the consideration, and we will see that Palestinian people will live in peace and dignity in their homeland.
Mustafa, staying on the same page, tell me more about the statements made about Syria, that the Turkish president made about Syria. He has urged now the SDF to cooperate with the Syrian government. Of course, we know the role of Ahmed al-Shara, a new president, a new era in Syria after 14 years of civil war. And he's also stressed that communities and minorities must stay together, must stay united. Tell me more about that, Mustafa.
Omar, Turkey and Syria have been enjoying close relationships in many fields in the last 9 months, because as you know, in last December, geopolitical landscape totally changed for Syria, and new government has been taking important steps to normalize the political situation in the war-torn country. And within this process, Turkish decision makers are reaffirming Turkey's ironclad support for Syria's unitary structure, territorial integrity, political stability, and national security. And last week, Syrian decision makers came to Turkey to meet with their Turkish counterparts to discuss the possible steps to eliminate the terror threat in the northern part of the country, because we know that PKK terror groups, Syrian offshoot, PYD, YPG, is still active in northern Syria, and they are still receiving strong support for the American decision makers. And this situation is clearly poisoning the bilateral relationships between Turkey and the United States. And yesterday, President Erdoğan also talked about Syria's political future, and he clearly stated that those who turn their faces to Ankara and Damascus will prevail, while those who seek foreign patrons will fail. And it is clearly sending a strong message to PYD, YPG dominated Syrian democratic forces. Yes, a new Syrian government reached an agreement with SDF in March, but we are seeing that PYD, YPG forces are violating the recent agreement reached with the new government in Damascus. And you know, Turkey conducted several counterterrorism operations in northern Syria in terms of not only eliminating terror threat, but also upholding the Syrian rights. If PYD, YPG insists on separate political structure in northern Syria, I think that Turkey will not allow any fait accompli, and Turkish military forces will be forced to conduct another anti-terrorism operation in northern Syria.
Mustafa Nurhan, thank you for those comments. I'll be right back with you guys. At the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan was widely recognized for his pivotal diplomatic efforts in mediating the Gaza ceasefire with world leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, praising his role in advancing the historic truce.
Turkey's foreign policy seeks to safeguard national interests amid regional and global volatility, while fostering lasting peace and development both nearby and globally. To achieve this core objective, Turkey actively supports global peace, stability, and prosperity.
This gentleman from a place called Turkey has one of the most powerful armies actually in the world. It's much more powerful than he even lets known. If you look at some of the recent conflicts, he was at the top of them and he was winning them, and he did win them. And he doesn't want any credits. He doesn't want anything. He just wants to be left alone. He's a tough cookie, but he's been my friend. And every time I've ever needed him, he's been there for me. So I just want to thank President Erdoğan, Turkey. Great guy.
Under the vision of the century of Turkey, the country's foreign policy strives to reinforce regional peace, enhance the institutional framework of its international ties, foster regional economic growth, and help shape the evolving global order. Turkey places a strong emphasis on regional peace and security by countering terrorism and extremism, preventing conflicts, promoting peaceful solutions and mediation, and encouraging local ownership in the process. Turkey aims to broaden the foundation of its foreign relations by strengthening current ties and establishing new cooperation frameworks and outreach initiatives.
When NATO has a problem with him, because he is difficult, they call me. They said, would you do me a favor? Could you speak to Erdoğan? And I do, and he never fails us, right, General? He never fails. He's amazing. So I just want to thank you for the friendship. It's great. Thank you very much.
Positioned at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, Turkey seeks to enhance existing strategic partnerships and build new ones. Turkey is steadily reinforcing its strong relationships with nations in the Balkans, the Middle East and North Africa, the Southern Caucasus, and South and Central Asia. In addition to its surrounding regions, Turkey is expanding its engagement in Africa and increasingly strengthening ties with countries in Latin America and the Caribbean.
On this extraordinary occasion, I also want to give our sincere thanks to President Erdoğan of Turkey. He's always there when I need him. He's such a tough guy. He is tough as you can be, but we love him. And when they have a problem with you, they always call me to handle it. And usually I come through. We just have a good relationship, and we have from the beginning. And so I want to thank you very much and say hello to your wife, your beautiful wife. And it's great to be with you. Always there. When I need him, he's always there. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Turkey employs a diverse set of political, economic, humanitarian, and cultural instruments, practicing a globally minded yet locally adapted diplomacy worldwide. A strong and resilient Turkey is increasingly recognized as a pillar of peace and stability across its surrounding regions, playing a vital role in advancing development, security, and cooperation on a broader scale.
Erdoğan can. He's respected by Russia. Ukraine I can't tell you about, but he is respected by Putin. And he's a friend of mine, you can see. Why? I get along with the tough ones. I don't get along with the weak ones. I get along with the tough ones. I don't know what that is, but Erdoğan's been great with me. When NATO has a problem with Erdoğan, which they often do, they call me to talk to him. And I've never failed in working it out like immediately. Is that right?
Welcome back. Nurhan, let's talk about the future of the Middle East. Now, we know how this ceasefire came into being. It was brokered by multiple countries. Turkey was there, Qatar was there, Egypt was there, of course, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia as well. How are you looking at the future of the Middle East, considering Iran is also in the picture, and Trump did warn Iran that you should make a deal right now when he was addressing the Israeli parliament. Firstly, let's start with the future of the Middle East. How are you looking at it?
We cannot deny the effort by Egypt, especially Egypt and Qatar, in this ceasefire or peace agreement. The negotiations, the way those negotiations happened in an indirect way, we shouldn't forget this, because both sides, they didn't face each other's. Palestinians which is Hamas basically, were separately than Israeli negotiations. So we cannot deny this huge effort by Egypt and Qatar, despite the fact of what happened in Qatar, the attack in Doha last month. Qatar respected and kept committed to its role to solve the conflicts and the issues in the Middle East. For the future of Middle East now after Gaza, now the focus will be solving Gaza issues. They are aiming to disarm Hamas. Maximum their role will be just political role, that's it, not military role. And in the mind of Israeli government, they want to deport them actually from Gaza. And it, by the way, one of the terms in the peace agreement, which is very clearly Hamas said no about this, and they will not leave Gaza. We will see what will happen related to this. After that, we shouldn't forget Lebanon. We shouldn't forget what's happening also in Syria and in Iran. Lebanon, still things are not clear related to disarmament of Hezbollah. How they gonna proceed this? Still Israel is continuing bombing south of Lebanon. They are claiming this by we are bombing centers of Hezbollah in certain villages in Lebanon. Almost every couple of days they are killing civilians in Lebanon. So kids, children. So still this is not clear yet. President Michel, the Lebanese president, he was absent in the big meeting, this historical meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh. But still, things in Lebanon are not clear yet, because the government, we shouldn't forget that the government in Lebanon doesn't have full control or full authority in Hezbollah. So things still not processed, things still unclear yet in Lebanon. And this might escalate the events in Lebanon to something bigger than that. Iran, still after the sanctions applied in Iran by United Nations, Iran supposed to have an agreement. We hope that maybe Iran will reach to a midpoint with the international community related to its situation in the region, but still they are refusing. By the way, even after the sanctions applied last month on the country, they are still refusing, but we don't know in the future if they will stick to this situation or not, despite the fact of what's happening now in the Middle East.
Nurhan, just to add to what you've said, during his address at the Israeli parliament, Trump said that Iran wants to make a deal. That's all I do in my life. I make deals and I'm good at it. So do you think Iran will be forced to make a deal with the United States, considering the circumstances right now?
If the pressure stayed like this, because the pressure now in Iran is so high, so if the international community continued putting pressure on Iran in the same direction, in the same way, I think, yes, they're going to reach to point to make a deal, definitely.
Mustafa, is it easy to disarm these groups? Let's talk about the PKK. The PKK has disarmed. It's supposed to disarm because it's a terrorist group. And this was a policy. This was a government policy that the PKK will be disarmed. It will, we saw what happened in Suleimania, the Iraqi cities. It disarmed, it dissolved. But when you're talking about Hamas and Hezbollah, these are resistance groups, right? But the world sees them as terror groups. Is it so easy? Will it be so easy for them to disarm?
First of all, I think we have to separate PKK terrorist groups from resistance groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Yes, there is a terror-free Turkey initiative in Turkey right now, and according to terror-free Turkey initiative, PKK terror group is supposed to dissolve itself and lay down its weapons. And in June, in northern Iraq's Süleymaniye provinces, some PKK terrorist members laid down their weapons. And Turkey is pursuing not only a terror-free Turkey initiative, but also Turkey is seeking for terror-free region. And within this process, Turkey is expecting some concrete steps from both Iraq and Syria to get rid of the terrorism issue in the region. But on the other hand, we are talking about resistance groups in Palestine and Lebanon. But actually, on the ground, Israel eliminated Hezbollah forces in Lebanon. And right now, it is up to Hamas to dissolve and lay down its weapons under the ceasefire deal with the United States. But Hamas members are still insisting on that they will not dissolve themselves, and they will not lay down their weapons. And that is the reason why right now there are some discussions about Hamas' political future. Yesterday, Trump also threatened Hamas again, and he claimed that if Hamas does not lay down its weapons voluntarily, United States will take responsibility to do that. But he didn't explain what the United States will take steps to do that. Maybe United States is preparing to take military steps, or Israel will continue its military operations in the region. And that is the reason why right now it is up to regional and international stakeholders to reconcile the different security demands coming from both sides. Turkey and Egypt and Qatar are playing an important role in terms of facilitating or mediating diplomatic talks between Hamas and Israeli decision makers. I think that Turkey will continue to defend the Palestinian cause. On the other hand, Hamas is indispensable part of the Palestinian territory, Gaza Strip. They won the national election in 2007, and I think that right now Palestinian people are still supporting Hamas political leadership. I hope that both sides will find a common way or common sense, and they will be able to bring peace and stability to the region.
Nurhan, at the UN, we saw that these discussions were ongoing, right? What would happen to Gaza? What would happen to the Palestinians? When will Israel stop its massacres? We saw all of that. At the same time, Trump, when he had this meeting with Arab and Muslim leaders, he said that he will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. Now, the UAE has reiterated on multiple occasions. The government has said that the West Bank, the annexation of the West Bank, is a red line for us. So if we're going to do that, we're not going to be a part of the Abraham Accords. Talking about the Abraham Accords, do you think that more countries are now going to be a part of that deal, that agreement? You know, Saudi Arabia maybe, or Qatar maybe? Do you think that they can join the Abraham Accords now that the ceasefire is in place?
I think so, yes. Because already the initial plan before October 7th was to normalize the things between Saudi Arabia and Israel, at the same time between United Arab Emirates and Israel. So things were going at that direction, because by the end of the day, countries like Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, they are busy with their developing process in the country. For example, the vision of Saudi Arabia 2030, same as United Arab Emirates. They are busy in this process. So it's very beneficial for them to be closer to Israel and its allies as well. After October 7th, and after the public opinions, and after seeing what's happening by Israel, this aggression and the catastrophic level of killing, barbaric killing actually, they put everything on hold. Now the situation is totally different. They saw the actions from Israel and the biggest ally of Israel, US, of course. So I think they are waiting now to see the implementation of this ceasefire agreement. If everything went as per the agreement, definitely they will go back to their initial plan, which is normalizing everything with Israel, because again, by the end of the day, they're going to look at their benefits, at the huge developing process happening in the country, and actually fast development process in Saudi Arabia and in United Arab Emirates. From the other hand, Israel and America need them, need their money, need their financial resources. We also in the meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh that Trump he was sitting, and behind him Arab leaders, he said clearly that, oh guys, those people have so much money and they will be responsible for rebuilding. We're going to rely on them for rebuilding Gaza. So it was a very clear message from both sides. They need each other's. So definitely, if things went based on the peace agreement, again, those countries such as Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, they will again try to normalize the relationship between them and Israel.
It doesn't make sense. Israel destroys Gaza and then the Arabs are responsible for rebuilding it. Exactly. Mustafa, credit must be given where it's due, by the way. Turkish President Erdoğan was opposing the arrival of Netanyahu. He was expected to join the summit in Egypt, which he did not. And that is because of the Turkish president, because he had some reservations and he said that he does not want to be in the same place as Netanyahu. Tell me more about that story, Mustafa.
Omar, there were some uncertainties about Netanyahu's presence at the peace summit in Egypt, and we know that Turkey is strictly opposing Netanyahu's presence in the peace summit. And on Monday morning, some sources said that Netanyahu will go to Egypt to attend the peace summit with Trump, but after that Netanyahu claimed that he will not go to Egypt, and he cited some Jewish holidays to stay in Israel. And it is clearly showing that there were some diplomatic discussions between regional and international stakeholders. Yes, Turkey is opposing Netanyahu's presence at the signing ceremony of peace deal, but on the other hand, there are many other nations. They are also against Netanyahu's presence at this summit. And at the end, Netanyahu didn't participate in the peace summit in Egypt. And I think that it paved the way for signing a ceremony for the peace deal. If Netanyahu decides to go to Egypt, I think that there will be some stalemate among regional and international stakeholders. That is the reason why Netanyahu didn't come to Egypt, and he didn't attend the peace summit. And I think that Turkey's diplomatic pressures yielded positive results in terms of advancing a ceasefire plan. I hope that in the foreseeable future, Israeli decision makers will find a common way or common sense, because right now Israel is being diplomatically isolated from the international community over its war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Gaza Strip. No one wants to be on the same page with Israel right now. Yes, United States is still giving its strong support for Israel, but Trump pressured Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire deal. I think that if Israel wants to join the international community again, they will continue to be a part of ceasefire or peace deal, and I hope that they will not restart their military campaign in the region, and they will keep their promises under the ceasefire agreement signed by Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, and the United States.
Yeah, it would definitely be ironic if Netanyahu, who has killed over 500,000 people, signs the peace deal. Anyway, Mustafa, Trump has also made some statements about Erdoğan and his role in ending the Russia-Ukraine war. Tell me more about that, because we're nearing the end of our program. Just some final words from you, Mustafa, on that.
Umar, as you know, since the very beginning of the geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine, Turkish decision makers have been trying to raise international awareness about the importance of the peace and security in the Eastern Europe, and Turkish decision makers reiterate at every opportunity that there will be no losers in just peace, and there will be no winners at continued conflicts. And that is the reason why Turkey is pursuing a balanced approach to the Ukraine-Russia war, and Turkish decision makers said that if there will be some discussions about Ukraine's political future, all warring sides should be supposed to sit on the same negotiating table. That is the reason why Turkey is pursuing leader-to-leader diplomacy between Russian and Ukrainian leadership, and Turkish decision makers are trying to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin, Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky, and US President Donald Trump together in Turkey's Istanbul or Ankara. And within this context, this week, Trump praised Turkey's role in advancing a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. We know that in August, Trump welcomed his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to Alaska to discuss possible steps to reach a ceasefire or peace deal. At that time, everyone was expecting immediate cessation of conflicts between Ukraine and Russia, but during that time, we said that the international community will be supposed to eliminate root causes of the conflict, and within this context, I think that Turkey can play an important role in terms of facilitating or mediating diplomatic talks between two warring sides. Yes, Istanbul hosted several rounds of peace negotiations between Ukrainian and Russian delegations. Maybe they didn't yield positive results in terms of ending a war between Ukraine and Russia, but personally, I think that Istanbul talks contributed to confidence-building measures between two warring sides, and I hope that all stakeholders will take Turkey's security demands into an account, and they will come together and they will decide to end ongoing conflicts in Eastern Europe.
Mustafa Kocakinar and Dr. Nurhan Elbaya, thank you so much for being on the program today. It was a pleasure listening to your analysis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our program. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.